What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're gonna be taking a look at components and layouts in Shiny. Components and layouts are basically used to control everything within your web app. If you want to create a visualization and put that in your web app, you have to specify that some way. You can't just run your code and it magically appears. You have to say, here's where I want it, here's how I want it to look. And that visualization may be some type of time series data. And so you want the user who's using your web app to be able to specify their time frames that they're looking at. And you can do that by specifying the component that you're using. And so everything within your web app is very customizable. And we're going to look at a ton of different examples. I'm gonna show you how to actually use them and implement them. So without further ado, let's jump on my screen and take a look. So as I just said, we're gonna be focusing on components and then layouts. Now, components are kind of the meat and potatoes of building your app. They allow you to create inputs and outputs and visualizations and all sorts of different things. And then we'll be taking a look at layouts, and let's come right up here to the layouts. Layouts help make your app look better. So you're gonna add some functionality. You're gonna be able to add nav bars and sidebars and different tabs. And so there's a lot of different things that you can add within these layouts that really help it feel better, look better, and just give it a better feel overall. And so we're going to start with components. We're going to kind of build out all the core functionality of our app that we're building today with real data. And then we're going to be making it look a lot better and more functional with the layouts. And so we'll kind of do a little mini project in this lesson with some YouTuber data. And then in the next video in this series, we're doing a full project with real data, building what I would consider as a really great project to add to your portfolio. Now, before we start building out everything, first thing we need to do is look at our data. So this is our data right here. It is the global YouTube statistics. It has YouTuber data, how many subscribers they have, video count or how many views they have, the type of category, maybe the title of their channel, how many uploads they have, their country, and some other things. Now, we're going to be building out what I would consider as a fairly simple web app, but it's going to look really good. But you can build on this after we're done with this. You can keep adding things and try out new stuff because there's a lot of data in here that you can do. So this is our data. Let's come over and we're going to go down to our VS Code. Now, if you don't know Matplotlib and pandas, that's okay. You don't need to know all of it, although it is very, very, very helpful. And I have a bunch of tutorials on how to do this, but I'm not going to be going through the code on, how this works and what it does. In essence, we're reading in the file. We are cleaning it up just a little bit, and we're only taking the YouTube channels where there are 50 million subscribers or less, and then we're creating a visualization. That's what we're doing. And what we're going to do is we're going to be building, basically, I would actually consider this kind of a small project right over here, but we need to be able to display this, add different inputs, add different outputs. And so let's go back to our components. And the first thing that I want to add is I want to add a visualization. Now we're using Matplotlib, but if you're using Plotly or Seaborn, they have different options for that. But let's go to Matplotlib. And right down here, we are going to basically be copying this. We've already defined our visualization. We just need to do something called a render. And render is how we create these outputs to be visualized. And so we also want this UI.input slider. Now that's an input. So this is an input and this is an output. And what we want to do is we want to make it to where we are connecting these two so it is dynamic. As you change the input, the output gets changed as well. So let's copy these two things and we'll get into it and I'll explain it once we get in there. So we're going to put this right above our visualization, just like this. And we actually don't need this part. But here's what we do need. If we try to just save this, let's go ahead and save this and run this and see what happens. We do have our input slider and we do have our visualization, but let's go ahead and try to change this. So there's something there that's not being connected from our input to our output. And that's this piece right here. This is actually named N. This input slider is N. And what we can do is let's actually change this. We'll call this bins. And what we can do is we're going to come right down here into this histogram. And we're going to add a comma. And we're just going to say input.bins and an open parentheses. And what that's going to do is that's going to say when we change this, it's going to change this input bins down here. So now let's go ahead and save this. It's going to recreate our visualization, but now it is going to be dynamic. So now we've connected our input and our output. That's a very important thing to remember when you're building these kind of interactive applications, is that you need to connect these two. And so it's always something you need to remember. If you have an input, you usually need to make sure you connect it to your output. Now, right after I say that, I'm actually going to show you one that doesn't actually need an output. So if we come down here, we have something like dark mode switch. If we come down here, this input needs nothing. We can actually just copy this and we can bring it, right over here. We can just put this right in here and we can save this. And it's going to give it a dark mode and a light mode. Now this is not connected to an output at all. If we just click this, all it's doing is adding an option or an input for someone to click on to change it from light to dark mode. So it's not interacting with an output. So there are some that don't interact, but if you do have something that you want to connect, that is very important. Now let's go down to our next piece. And the next piece is something that I personally really like, which is when I have a visualization, I like to show the data as well. And I actually really like seeing that on web apps or just websites in general. So if we come down here, there's something called a data grid. And data grids are great because it's just going to display your data. And so we can just copy this, and by the time we see it, we can see our data up here. So this is what it's going to look like, and it'll be right under our visualization. So we're going to have this data frame. We just have to render .data frame. And so let's come back. Let's put it right down here. Instead of rendering this data frame, we need to take our real data frame. So our real data frame is this DF filtered. That's the data that we're using for this visualization. And we'll rename this. We'll call this a YouTuber data frame. So let's go ahead and save this. And as you can see right over here, we have our data right underneath it. Now I'm actually going to do the light mode. I think it's going to look a little bit better. We may actually comment this out going forward. For what we're actually building, it may not be the best option. So I'm just going to comment that out, but you can leave that in there. But now we can see right down here, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, or maybe even thousands. I don't know how many is actually in here, but we have a lot of YouTubers in here that we can see, and this is connected to this data up here. Now, what if I want to change the visualization and I want to come down here and be able to filter based off of a YouTuber? Maybe I want to search for Alex the Analyst. Maybe he's somewhere in here. I hit it big in a few years and this web app picks me up one day. And I want to be able to search in here. Well, we can do that. We can make it to where you can search for a YouTuber and it's going to change the actual output that you're seeing down here. So let's go ahead and see what we would need to do that. Let's go back to our components and let's come down and look for something that we can type in. Here we go. We have a text box. So let's come and grab this text box. And we're going to take this UI.input.text. So I'm going to put it right down here. We'll put it right above this part right here. We're going to need to change our code a little bit down here. But if we just save this and run this, we're going to have our text input and it'll be right down here. Now, if we actually type in, let's say we're looking for Billie Eilish. If we're typing in Billie, it's not connected, right? We haven't connected these two things yet, so it's not going to do anything. But before we change anything, let's get rid of this enter text because we don't want to auto-populate this box. And we'll call this a YouTuber search. So we'll call this YouTuber search. There we go. Now, what we actually need to do is we're going to need to change our code down here to say, if somebody is typing in, let's say Billie Eilish or something, we have to filter this YouTuber column based off of what they're searching for. And so this isn't the easiest thing in the world. Let's actually pull this over. This isn't the easiest thing. If you check this out and you try it out a little bit, you're going to run into some errors and mistakes. But I'm going to show you what the kind of the good code looks like. What we want to do is anything they type in there, we'll make it lowercase. So we'll come right in here. We'll call this search text. We'll just use this in a little bit. We'll call this search text. And let's say we're going to take the input.text, and that's this right here, this text right here. We're going to say input.text. We're going to do .strip, and then we'll do dot lower. So that's going to strip anything that shouldn't be there, and it's going to lowercase everything so we can more easily find things. And if somebody types in Billy perfectly, it'll search. But if they do Billy lowercase, it wouldn't get it because there's a capital B and a lower B. So we don't want that to be the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to say their input is made to be lowercase. So now we need to search for it. We'll make a conditional statement. We'll say if, it needs to be lowercase, if the search text, if it's populated, if somebody is typing something into our search text, then what do we want to do? We want to filter this YouTuber column to be whatever they're searching for. So we're going to say data frame filtered, and we'll do it just like this, data frame filtered, and then we're going to search for just that column. So that's data frame filtered and then YouTuber. So we'll do YouTuber, just like that. So we're saying for this column, and then we need to also make it .string.lower because we want it to match this search text. Then we're going to do .string .contains, and what does it need to contain? That search text. So we're going to say search text, and then we'll also do NA is equal to false. And so if somebody is typing something in to our input text, which is this right here, if somebody's typing something in, we're going to filter to exactly what they're inputting. If they're not, we'll say else. If they're not, then we're just going to return the data frame filtered. Now we actually need to assign this to be in our output, so we can't just leave it like this. Let's actually rename both of these pretty easily. We'll just say final output. You can put whatever you want. So we'll do final underscore output is equal to, and we'll put our final output as what's going to be rendered or returned in our data grid. Let's go ahead and save this, and let's run it and see if it works. Should be able to bring this over right here. All right, so now we've connected this YouTuber search to down here. So let's type in Billie Eilish. We'll type in Bill, and there you go. So now we have this search. And so now D Billions, Billie Eilish. Let's type in Alex. Let's see what happens. See if Alex the Analyst is in there. Yeah, we're not big enough, unfortunately. Very sad. But maybe one day. Maybe one day. So this is our YouTuber search. So we can come in here and we can say Mr. Beast should show. Actually, Mr. Beast isn't in our filter because he has over 50 million. But we have Mr. Beast Gaming, Mr. Beast stuff. So a bunch of Mr. Beast stuff. So you can come in here and you can search this. Now, the only downside to this is that it's only connected to our data grid. What if we also want to connect it to this up here? Well, we can do that. So let's come up here and let's actually take this and we're going to put it right next to it. And the order matters because if we hit Control S, we've moved it up in the order of things. But again, it's still only connected down below, but we're going to connect it to our distribution of subscribers as well. What we need to do is essentially the same thing. We can just copy this whole thing for the search text. We can place it right up here. That looks really good, except our final output, that's what's going to be put right here. So we just need to replace that final output as the data that we're hitting off of. So now if we save this, it should actually be connected to both. So now let's type in Bill. And there we go. So you have Billie Eilish with almost 50 million, which is right here. And then D Billions, which is 260, what is that, 26 million. So there we go. So now this is completely dynamic and we can, oops, I need to at least have one. I may want to add that as part of the code, but now you can change the bins and you can search at the same time. So now it's becoming a lot more dynamic. And so this is looking really, really good. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the inputs and all of the components in general because there's a ton of them and you can already see how they're starting to work. They're very, very useful. But now we're going to start going into our layouts. So let's come up here and we're going to go down to layouts. Let's start up here with a nav bar because nav bars are pretty common in websites. If you come up here to our shinyapps.io, we have our nav bar up here, right? So you can click different things. There's different options. So nav bars are pretty popular. So let's click into this nav bar at top. Now, what you need to do is you do this UI page ops, and you may actually need to bring this in. So we may want to bring in some of these other things. So let's go ahead and add these real quick. And we'll just import all of them. Actually, I can get rid of this one because we already have this one, but import Shiny UI page navbar, that may be needed. Next thing we're going to bring is all of this. Now, here's what it's actually doing is we're creating this title app with navbar, and we have these different options, A, B, C. And then under each one, we have our content, which is tabbed over. So this is, very simple Python. And so what we're going to do is we're going to copy this entire thing. We're going to come back to our code. There we go. And let's come right down here and let's paste this in. So this is going to be our YouTuber app. And now what we're going to do is under this with UI nav panel, we're going to put our visualization. So actually, let's just copy all of this. We'll get rid of all this. So we have our inputs and we have our visualization. And then down here, we'll put our next one. And so we're going to call this, or we're going to have in here our data frame. And so we're going to tab this whole thing over. We're going to call this data. And then we're going to take this whole thing, should be right here. We're going to tab this over. And we're going to call this the visualization. Visualization. There we go. And so what we can do now is when we save this, it should create a top nav bar for us. So let's go ahead and save this. And now let's bring this all the way over. And you can see we have our YouTuber app, we have our visualization, and then over here we have our data. Now, if we go ahead and we search for Bill, it's still going to work. And it's still connected to our data over here. So it's still dynamic. We're just kind of separating and changing the layout. And that's, what layouts is all about. And so we're changing the layout of this. Now this already looks a lot better, but let's go to layouts again. And let's come right here. Another really popular thing is sidebars. So instead of just having this bins and YouTuber search above our visualization, what if we want it on a sidebar? I think that would look a lot better. So let's do a sidebar on the left. And so we're going to do this right here. So we're going to say with UI sidebar. We're going to come back. Let's bring this over. There we go. And what do we actually want in that sidebar? We want this number of bins in the YouTuber search. So we're going to get rid of this. And we're going to tab this over. And there we go. So this should be in a sidebar now. So let's go ahead and save this. And we'll come back. It looks like our sidebar right here is very small. I don't think it's working, at least within this. But it should have a little sidebar right here. All right, that's not working. So let's go back and look at our documentation. It says add UI layout sidebar inside any Shiny UI page. Pass the sidebar as the first argument of UI layout sidebar. And then we should be able to pass that through. So I think we need to, let's go back here. Let's copy this UI layout sidebar. So we're going to do that right here. We'll say with UI layout sidebar, and then we'll tab over everything underneath it because that's all going to go right here. And then we're going to do that, and then we'll render this as part of the layout. So let's try this, and there we go. So now we have this sidebar. In fact, let's pull it up right over here. This is just like a local host of it. So now we have this, the bins. There we go. And we have the search. And it's all working. So we can make this look better, of course, but just right off the bat, I mean, this is looking pretty good. So let's get out of this. Let's go back to our visualization. And let's pull this all the way back over. So now we have our sidebar working. We have our top nav or our nav panel working. We have our visualizations that are all looking good. One last thing that I find super helpful are these content divided by cards. Now, the cards are just super intuitive, really nice at making things look a lot better. And so I just want to show you how to use it. And we'll actually publish our dashboard and we'll be rocking and rolling. Now, this is a card. They automatically will kind of encapsulate what you put into it. And if you have multiple cards, if you have a layout columns with a card here and a card here, they'll separate them and it'll make it look really nice and tidy. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this part right here. We're going to come back to our code and we're just going to come down, and on this second, on this data piece, we're going to put this all in a card. So let's come right in here. It's just kind of squarish, but let's put this in a card and just see how it looks. So we'll come right here. So within this nav panel, we'll say with a card, we're going to put this. Let's do, actually we need one more. There we go. And let's just see how this looks. So we have this right here. Then we're going to Control S. So we're going to recreate this. Back to our data. And now you can see it's all encapsulated within this card, and it just looks a little bit neater. And when you add multiple cards, it looks a lot better. And so we're going to stop here because we've covered a lot. But if you come in here, there is so many different components and layouts that you can use. And it's pretty fantastic. I mean, they just have so many options that you can customize. You can nest them within one another, and they're awesome. One other thing, just real quick while we're here, is if you go into Learn Shiny and the references for Shiny Express, so many different things that you can use. And they go into the rendering. So you can go in here and look at all the different ways to render things, all the different types of panels that you can do, because we looked at some of them, but there are a bunch of other ones as well. So you can come in here and take a look at these. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to deploy this as our app. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to show you something that may be causing an issue. Let's go back here, right here. We're going to do RS Connect. We're going to do Shiny deploy, or sorry, deploy Shiny. Deploy Shiny-N, and then it's Alex, the Analyst Shiny app. And we'll do a dot. Let's go ahead and deploy this and see what it looks like. And just like that, an error has occurred. And this is not fun when you see this. So let's come back over here. Let's go to our logs. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. It says no such file or directory found. Now I'm storing this locally, but it's just not reading it in for some reason. And I found a way that works. And so I just wanted to show it to you. We're going to comment this out. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to bring this one in. Now you need to use something called pathlib, import path, or we're going to use this path right here. We're basically declaring this as kind of the parent file. And then here's our CSV that we're using. And so it knows the correct path to look for. So let's go ahead and save this. And it should pull up over, actually, let's go back here. We're going to save this and it should pull up the exact same. So it should still work. Reading in the same file should still all work. But now let's go back to our PowerShell. We're just going to, let's copy this back here. I don't want to write out the whole thing. Let's copy this whole thing. And now that we have that saved, now let's deploy it one more time. And just like that, no more issues. And as you can see, we have our data, we have our visualization. This should all be working. There we go. It's all working great. Now, this is a very simple app. This is really just to demonstrate different components and layouts. And, you can go really in depth and make this an amazing web app. Now, in the next lesson, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be really deep diving and using some new components, new layouts, and customizing it and making an amazing Shiny app. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you're able to follow along through the whole thing. Huge shout out to Posit, who makes Shiny for Python. Absolutely amazing. If you have not already, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.